sand castle. Cove wasn't able to do many things that summer. When him and Shiloh sat out on the shoreline one bright morning, you could tell he wanted to be in the water. But there was no way he'd be swimming anytime soon, not with his cast. The waves washed a single shelled ashore, glittering in blue, another reminder of the places he couldn't go. From what you'd heard about Cove's old life so far, in tiny pieces and fragments, you could tell that he'd do anything to be able to get the cast off. The possibilities of what he might get up to made you anxious. You thought about how his summer last year must have been totally different from this, with his old home and his mom and dad. But now he was here, with you and Shiloh and Lizzie and everyone else, and he couldn't even go in to see. This town wasn't so bad, it had all your favorite things in it, but sitting there on the same beach you'd grown up on, you could understand that not everybody felt the same way about Sunset Bird as you did. You watched him from the corner of your eye quietly, and he finally said aloud what you had been pondering. I wish I could go in. The water? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You're going to be able to do it soon. Cove only sighed in response. Apparently soon wasn't soon enough. It's so pretty, the ocean. And huge. There could be anything out there. Like mermaids. Yeah! I wish you didn't have a cast. I don't really care. Swimming might be fun if we could. I'm fine here on land. Mermaids aren't real. I'm fine. Alright. Obviously not interested in hearing much more about your input on the situation, Cove turned back to the water. But as he looked away, something about Shiloh's slow, careful movements caught his eye. Hey, are you building a sandcastle? Sort of. I was only playing around while you were talking. I'm listening. Maybe I could too. I've only made big piles before. It's really nothing special. I'm sure you'll be good at it right away. Well, how do you do it then? Shiloh's cheeks lit up. You could tell he was a bit uncomfortable to have Cove's expectant stare on him. I'll play too. I love making sand stuff. I've never really made one before. There's nothing else to do. I've never made one before. Okay. He put his hands back to his seashells in the sand and nodded. I don't do a lot. Here's how I like to get a house started. Shiloh, focusing more intently than you'd ever seen him, guided the two of you through his process. Aww. It didn't take long for the three of you to each have humble structures prepared. That's all, kind of. You can do anything now, like make it bigger, add some seashells, carve a pretty pattern. I bet you'll have great ideas. Okay. I'm gonna make it bigger. Mine is gonna be a real castle. Cool. This is gonna be a house. Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decide to make a house, a castle, a mansion. I'll just do a little house. Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decide to make a normal house. The better part of the next hour was spent focusing on your work. The boys were the same. Even Shiloh didn't sneak as many peeks at everyone else as he usually did. Aww. You finished shaping before either of them did, glancing up from what you built. It seems you got done so fast because they already searched around for extra decorations. Shiloh had grabbed most of the really interesting stuff, and Cove had a lot of shells, but there were still options. The first thing you reached for was a red bottle cap, blue seashell, piece... Ooh, sea glass. It was the best fit for your house, you decided. It was see-through and sparkly, so you tucked it away somewhere secure inside, barely poking out to make sure it didn't get lost. Pleased with your result, you finally took a proper look around that wasn't focused on the sand itself. Both Cove and Shiloh seemed super immersed still. You knew you could probably sneak a peek at either one's work. You decided not to look. You instead watched some clouds go by. The silence was broken. What's on the top of yours, Shiloh? You peeked closer and discovered something shiny sticking out of Shiloh's sand chimney. Oh, it's just a gum wrapper. It looks like smoke. Neat. That's good. It's good. That's smart. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I guess I don't see it. You should be an architect. Kinda looks more like a worm. You'd be good at it, Shiloh. Shiloh smiled without a word. And that was that for the current topic. Risa, can I see what you did? Sure. You began surveying your work. You'd built a comfortable little house with a tree in the front yard. The tree had been hard to keep standing up by itself, but it turned out pretty well. Shiloh decided to jump in the new conversation. Hey Risa, what'd you do? I made a house. I built a house too. That's so neat. No one else has a castle. Yep, it's just you. Cove phrased that as though it was a point of pride. Shiloh's sing-songy tone gave the impression of something else. You weren't quite sure. Cove's confused face meant he must have also felt it was strange. There's nothing wrong with doing something different, you thought. Maybe Shiloh didn't feel the same way. If something is the only one of that thing, that makes it special. Yeah, for sandcastles and stuff. People too. My dad always says how everybody is their own man, a real individual. I don't think I'm very special. Oh, baby, you are. Why not? Nobody else is you. Shiloh simply shook his head. I'm not different. A beat passed between the two. Cove then looked down at his own work again. Okay. He didn't seem to be bothered, leaving the disagreement hanging there. Cove had other things on his mind. My dad tried to get me to make sandcastles the first time we came to this beach. I didn't want to. Cove trailed off again. Cove trailed off. Again, there was another moment of silence. Shiloh shifted and opened his mouth to say something, but Cove spoke up before he could. You didn't think he noticed that Shiloh was going to talk. Hey, do you know what happened when your moms met my dad, Risa? You blinked, not expecting the question. You thought hard. I wasn't there. They didn't tell me. I just remember what happened when I met your dad. Mr. Holden had been a weird stranger then. Well, he was still kind of strange. No other parent acted like him, but you knew him better at this point. Now that you thought about it, it made a lot of sense that Cove's dad talked to him about people being unique. You were pulled from your thoughts when Cove interrupted. Oh, well, I was there. I don't think my mom has met your dad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she hasn't. Risa's parents and my dad met the same day I met them. I'm gonna say what happened. Shiloh frowned to himself, ducking his head. His hat cast a shadow over his face. You could still tell he was upset at not being included in Cove's choice of topic. Aww. That was kind of boring for him, though giving people their own turn to say the things they want is important too. He stayed silent and let Cove finish his story. Shiloh could talk about stuff after Cove had a chance to share what he planned on. When we moved here, we didn't bring a lot of things with us, only some stuff that would fit in Dad's car. We didn't even get a moving truck. I sat in there while Dad brought it all inside. I didn't want to get out because I knew Dad would make me look around the new house. I really didn't want to do that. His lips twisted into a frown as he recalled that. Then I saw your moms. They were in a car too and stopped at your house. I guess they were coming back from somewhere or something. My dad noticed. He waved his hand, then went over to the front of your house where he started talking to them. I don't know what they said. I couldn't hear it, but he couldn't see me anymore since he was looking the other way. So I opened the car door and left. I wanted to get away and went behind the houses. I found those hills there, the ones where we met for the first time. Cove nodded, then stared at you. You stared back. He didn't go on to say anything more. Is that it? Cove's brow wrinkled, like he didn't understand why you were surprised. That's all that happened. Okay. Why'd you want to tell the story if nothing happened? You really gotta get better at telling stories. That was a pretty bad story. Thanks for telling me. Okay. What is it? What? You said that in a weird way. Did I? Cove narrowed his eyes at you, suspicious. Shiloh's mouth twisted in a scowl of disbelief, but he said nothing. Why'd you bring that up anyway? There was a slight shrug of Cove's shoulders. I was thinking about it because of the sandcastle. It made me remember when I moved to here. Dad showed me the beach first before we went back to the car to unpack. He was really excited about it for some reason. Cove's brows furrowed a little more as he quietly raked his hands through the sand. I get it. You thought maybe Mr. Holden wasn't that excited about the beach and was instead hoping Cove might be. But the line of conversation had come to its end. Even Cove was done with it. Some other topic had popped into his head. Shiloh, fidgeting uncomfortably in the sand, had made Cove aware of his presence again. They looked at each other, and you could only wonder what this might be about. Hey, Shiloh. Yeah? Why are you always turning so red, even when nothing is happening? Clearly startled, he jerked back. Neither you or Shiloh had expected to be how he got included in the conversation again. I don't know, I guess. Okay, it's kind of weird. Shiloh's eyes were wide with embarrassment and his lips twitched, and he was blushing even harder than before. Maybe it wasn't only this. Perhaps it was simply the last straw. But it was a big deal to Shiloh, a huge deal. He didn't just look sad, he seemed almost panicked. Oh, baby, it's okay. You weren't sure if he was about to cry or run away or what, but you soon got an answer. Why do you wear glasses? Most kids don't wear glasses, and nobody is named Cove.
Who asked you to come?
Aw. Who asked you to come? I was saying aw at the voice. Who asked you to come? It was probably just your dad bugging Risa's family some more, because you don't have anyone else who'll ever play with you. Shiloh, don't be mean. Cove blinked. The tension on the beach was suddenly uncomfortable in a way you didn't know how to even mention. It didn't seem like the kind of thing he'd get upset about, though you hadn't ever known what kind of thing would bother Shiloh. I'm sorry. Me too. I was just wondering. Hey, let's build another sandcastle. You tried to play on your own. It's like, I'm done with this. Just gonna go play on my own. Are we gonna build more? You nervously messed with the sand. Social anxiety. You picked up some sand and turned it over in your hands. There didn't seem to be much you could do to stop the fight, and you weren't sure what to do with yourself. Cove looked over at what you were doing and started building his own set of walls. Shiloh took a breath before kneeling back down to his own patch of sand. It seemed they both decided to try playing again. You were glad for that. You all went back to making more sand buildings, but the whole mood had changed. Shiloh's cheeriness was clearly gone, and Cove looked as confused as ever about why the other boy had blown up. The air stayed uncomfortable the rest of the afternoon, right up to the moment that Shiloh's mom appeared at the beach to take him home. Cove and Shiloh had mostly followed your lead and barely said a word. His mom standing behind him, even Shiloh's goodbye had been quiet. Friendly, cheerful, but noticeably quiet. But with Shiloh gone and the sun going down, you knew it was time for you and Cove to head to your own houses. You followed him as he made his way out of the sand. The walk home was quiet. You passed by familiar landmarks, shoes thumping against the sidewalk in near perfect unison. Cove was clearly caught up in thinking about something. You stayed silent. There was no way you could ask, not with that look on his face. But a minute or so later, he spoke up anyway. Hey, Risa? What? Cove fell silent again for a few more seconds and sighed. Why'd Shiloh act like that, when I said he was all red a lot? You were being rude to him. He's just being a baby. You shouldn't make fun of him. I don't know, it's just Shiloh. He gets embarrassed. You shrugged at Cove and gave no answer. There wasn't really much you had to say about Shiloh. He was Lizzie's friend. I guess I can get it, why he would do that. Sometimes I get really mad, too. Despite seemingly coming to a conclusion, Cove's mood was still sour. What Shiloh said didn't make sense anyway. Parents always talk to other parents and set up stuff so their kids play together. My dad didn't do anything weird. You struggled not to make a face at that. His dad definitely did something weird to try and get you to spend time with Cove. But Cove didn't know that. Nobody's making me spend time with you. Your dad does do stuff so you'll hang out with my family. But Shiloh shouldn't have said that. You decided to tell him about his dad after you... Oh. I was about to click that because it didn't have quotes, but no. Nobody's making me spend time with you. Cove's shoulder relaxed. You hadn't even noticed that he had tensed up. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Oh. Anyway, I knew the whole time Shiloh shouldn't have been saying things like that. You nodded, but you didn't speak. You kept your eyes firmly on the ground. By now, the two of you were on the sidewalk near your houses. It was time to part ways. Bye, Cove. Your parents hadn't planned anything else for you, though you knew that you'd see him eventually. Cove nodded, already turning away. Bye, Risa. You made your way to your house at a leisurely pace, going up to the driveway to get to the front door. Before you went inside, you looked back. Cove was halfway to his house, his hands shoved in his pockets. You still felt a little unsure with what you were supposed to do about the deal Cove's dad had offered. You didn't want to say something bad or something you shouldn't. You might change your mind sometime, but there was always tomorrow after all. But for now, it was definitely something that you'd keep to yourself. With a final look, you went inside your house. Oh. Well, that's done. Fireflies. All right, tonight we're gonna catch fireflies. At this blunt declaration from your sister, you looked up from your macaroni and cheese dinner. Fireflies were a familiar sight over the summer, coming out on warm nights to dance through the sky. Tonight was particularly balmy, but you knew there were bound to be tons of them around. Oh, you are you? Yeah, you started eating faster. You looked over at your mom's. You pushed your food around your plate. They hadn't answered for sure yet, but if that's what Lizzie said you'd do, that's probably what you'd end up doing. Lizzie was an expert at getting her way, having mastered the art of it by the time she could talk. Oh, Shiloh's here. That's a good idea, Lizzie. Can we, Mrs. Rose? Shiloh tapped his fork against the table excitedly, his face lighting up as he looked at Lizzie. It was unusual for Shiloh to still be here. Like always, his mom had to bring him over really early in the morning before jobs started. But normally, she would have picked him up by now. She called before dinner to let your moms know she'd be late. You didn't hear why, probably more work things. You thought maybe getting to hang out with Shiloh for longer is what made Lizzie want to keep running around the house. Staying at home and watching TV was never an option for her with guests over. That's why you were pretty sure she'd get your moms to agree. Well, it's already so dark out there. Lizzie gave Mom the best puppy dog eyes she could, slowly spooning mac and cheese into her mouth while you waited for their response.
There.
Let them go. Nights like this don't happen every day. Your parents exchanged a look, then Mom eventually sighed and nodded back. Yes! Fine. Just make sure you stay on the hill behind our house with all the poppies, okay? Duh, Mom. That's where most of them are. The idea had only just planted in your head, but already you could just picture all the glowing lights spread out in front of you, like the fairies from the bedtime stories Mommy read sometimes. Lizzie and Shiloh started digging into their food, it soon became a race to see who could finish their dinner first. Aren't you excited to go outside and play, Risa? You gave a non-committal shrug. Risa is just mad because I always catch the most. Lizzie boasted proudly, her mouth full of food, and Mom gave her a stern look. Elizabeth... A knock on the door interrupted Mom before she could, no doubt, scold your sister. I'll get it. Your big sister jumped out of her seat and ran over to the door, pulling it open without even looking out the window to see who it was. Huh? You shifted in your seat to try to get a glimpse of the unexpected guest.
Hi.
Good evening, Cove. Your mommy had already walked to the door by the time you managed to see past Shiloh's floppy hat. Why is Cove here? Is something wrong? He didn't give you any clear acknowledgement, his eyes firmly fixed on the ground in front of him. You shrugged, going back to shoveling a fork full of macaroni into your mouth. Then for a few seconds, Cove said nothing. He only stood there and looked up at your mommy with a face almost like he was considering turning around and leaving. My dad told me to drop this off because I guess he borrowed it from you. Cove took a familiar screwdriver out of his large side pocket. Eyes now dropped to the floor. We left ours back home when we moved. Great, thanks. Bye! Thank you. Here, why don't you come inside for a bit? Lizzie crossed her arms and lifted her chin. Cove shrugged, and Mom stood from the table too. I'll give your dad a call to let him know you got here all right. Cove shuffled fully inside, eyes remaining on the ground. Mommy closed the door behind him. Hi, Cove. Shiloh gave Cove a friendly smile while waving by holding up his hand and opening and closing his fingers. Cove nodded in response. You weren't sure what to say now. Is Cove coming with us to catch fireflies too? That was Shiloh. If he stays, I guess. Lizzie didn't exactly look thrilled by the idea, and you wondered if she felt threatened that someone might catch more bugs than her. Or maybe she didn't like his company. I want to see them. I've never caught one before. It's too bad he didn't have a chance before now. The fireflies weren't out when he first moved in, and there must not have been at anywhere he used to live. We can't go until after dinner. After she pointed this out, Lizzie walked back to the table and took her seat. There wasn't much left on her plate. Since this was very true, you decided to finish up your own stuff as well. Cove stepped closer and eyed what was on the menu for your family's meal. Have you eaten yet? Yeah, my dad and I ate earlier. What'd you have? Eggs. The clipped one-word answer seemed to discourage Shiloh from asking any more questions. His eyes slowly wandered back to the last scraps of food on his plate. Her phone call with Cove's dad must have ended because your mom came back into the room. Cove, your dad said you can stay for a little while if you'd like, but he's going to come get you before it gets too much later. Sure.
Fun.
Oh, fun. This will be so nice. As you polished off the meal, you hoped it would be too. The three of you all finished eating shortly after, and Lizzie led the way outside. Remember, don't stray too far. It's fine, Mom. Shiloh trailed so closely after Lizzie he was nearly stepping on her heels. Cove hesitated at the door. You smiled lightly at Cove, gesturing for him to follow. After a moment, he did.
Bye.
Bye, children. The two of you were a good 10 or 15 feet behind Lizzie and Shiloh by the time you walked outside. You push the door shut behind you, watching their figures get farther and farther away.
Hurry up!
You're so slow, Risa. We don't have all night. You started to run when you heard Lizzie's voice calling you, but paused when you saw Cove still walking at a relaxed pace. Are you not going to come? You tugged him along. You walked with him. You waved at him to hurry. You ran off. I'll just walk. You wanted to catch up to Lizzie and Shiloh, but it would be rude to just leave Cove alone when you're supposed to be hanging out with him. The two of you followed after the footsteps Lizzie and Shiloh left behind until you reached the hill behind your house. Aw, fireflies! Lizzie had already climbed to the top. Shiloh was spinning in circles somewhere around the middle. Upon seeing the gently glowing, winking lights, you moved a bit faster, eyes widening in delight. Wow. Aw. Shiloh took a moment to come over and welcome the both of you to the hill. Hi guys, it's really great out, huh? See how many there are? Yeah. A firefly danced through the air, landing on Cove's sea-green head. Shiloh couldn't help but giggle. You and Shiloh couldn't help but giggle. You quietly looked on. You shooed the bug away. Quietly looked on. You took a couple of steps back slowly, trying not to spook the little bug as you admired how it glowed so brightly against Cove's hair. Cove raised an eyebrow, giving you a confused look, and Shiloh giggled. You gestured to his head, and he reached up, making the firefly dart away. Cove jumped, then followed after the glow. Oh, look! Lizzie has one! That's amazing! Shiloh ran to the highest point of the hill, making sure not to lose his hat or backpack along the way. You hummed as the group divided and conquered, shifting your gaze to the dozens of other fireflies sailing around. The game was on. You had a bandage on your thumb, and you tried to be cautious of that. Why do I have a bandage on my thumb? You had a bandage on your palm. Why do I have bandages? You had 2 bandages on your hand. You were good at not getting cuts or scratches, so you weren't too worried about that. Spotting one close by, you approached it with assassin-like stealth, crouching down to make yourself seem less of a threat. Slowly dragging one foot in front of the other, you crept up towards it, arms outstretched. You closed your hands around the little glowing orb, careful not to crush it. The firefly landed on your palm, almost docile, and you stared down at your prize in delight. Its tiny legs tickled your skin, and you giggled at the sensation. Cove kept up with his own target when he tried to grab it, and his pink cast waved awkwardly through the air. But when he tried to grab it, his pink cast waved awkwardly, foiling his efforts to clap his hands around the firefly. Okay. Cove watched it vanish into thin air with a dissatisfied expression on his face. You encouraged him to try again. You told him about the firefly you had. You made a joke about what happened. You did your own things. Social anxiety. Letting Cove continue his hunt, you slowly brought your hands closer to your face, studying the little creature at the center of your palms. Hello, little bug. The firefly didn't say hello back, though you hadn't expected it to. You decided to collect more. You decided to sit in the grass and watch. You quietly took a seat among the flowers. The others were jumping and dashing all about. You saw how many times they succeeded and failed, how Shiloh almost tripped a couple of times. It was a dramatic show. Though around you it was calm, the lights of the stars and fireflies surrounded you peacefully. It was a beautiful night. You laughed quietly to yourself as you watched the others, and Shiloh finally managed to catch a firefly between his small hands. His eyes lit up, and when he spread his fingers to take a peek at it, the bug escaped and flew up into the air. Oh! You watched as he pounced after it once more, but your eyes soon landed on Cove, who had failed to catch a firefly yet. You waited to see what happened. You watched as he crept up on an unsuspecting bug so slowly that for a moment you wondered if he was still moving at all. Then he raised his hands towards one of the little, bobbing balls of light, closing on it ever so slowly.
No way!
No! The crafty little critter escaped his clutches at the last moment, drifting too high up for Cove to reach. While Cove returned to hunting fireflies, you settled for laying back against the soft grass, watching the poppies swaying around you and the fireflies hovering against the vast sky. Risa! Cove! Get up here! We're gonna have a race! The shouting caught you off guard. It had been a while since you heard from Lizzie or Shiloh. You glanced over to see them both standing on the top of the hill again, Lizzie beckoning to you with quick hand gestures. If she was like that, you knew there wasn't much room for disagreement. Up the incline you went. From the corner of your eye, you saw Cove coming as well. He didn't care for Lizzie a lot, so you thought he might be intrigued just by the idea of a race. Hi. Hi. Cove, you can't roll down the hill. You could hurt your arm again. You'll be the referee for the rest of us. As Lizzie pointed this out, Cove froze in place. Oh, it was that kind of race. He frowned down at his cast. That was the second time it got in the way tonight. What? Yeah, you'll watch and see who gets to the bottom first. That's important. Got it?
I guess.
The cast was sturdy. If he was careful, he could have done it. Lizzie might have just been looking for a reason to make someone else the referee, but it was already decided. I'm gonna do something else. You got into position for the race. Satisfied with this, Lizzie moved to lay down, and Shiloh did the same. Cove stood slightly to the side to get a better vantage point. It seemed like he was taking his newfound referee duties seriously. Countdown! You quickly got into position as well, resting on your side in the grass and tucking your arms close to your chest. 3, 2, 1, go. The three of you took off, letting gravity do the work and rolling at high speeds towards the bottom. You squeezed your eyes shut, and delighted laugh leaving you, and consequently allowing a few blades of grass into your mouth. You sputtered, reaching up to swipe them away. It threw off your balance and sent you careening sideways. Oof. Ah. Everyone started too close together because the slight turn made you, then Shiloh, then Lizzie collide into a heap. You tumbled down the last few feet in a pile. Shiloh's elbow was in your stomach, and you were pretty sure Lizzie's hair was in your mouth, but you had survived. Perhaps it wouldn't have been safe for Cove after all. You could hear him laughing in the distance. When you opened your eyes, you saw the starry sky above, and Cove still on top of the hill, staring down at the three of you with an amused look on his face. Hey, cool crash. I think Shiloh was the first one at the bottom. That didn't count. We need a redo. Kids, it's time to come in. No! You sighed, not knowing if it was from contentment or exasperation, and closed your eyes again. It had gotten late and was beginning to feel just a bit chilly as you made your way out of the hills, but the cold in the air hadn't dampened anyone's spirits. The four of you walked back home together side by side down your neighborhood street, discussing the evening, with each person trying to prove that they were the one who caught the most fireflies. You knew that whoever really did catch the most didn't matter much anyway. All that mattered was that you all had a good time, which, judging by the smiles on everyone's faces, you did.